is counting down.
It's a bomb going to go off.
It's my normal voice.
Oh, you're doing a Spencer thing? Is that what you're doing?
No, what are you talking about? I've always sounded like this.
So much testosterone. You got high T.
Oh,
Can they take testosterone from people who are just too masculine like you?
I've told that I've tested positive every time I've had my blood drawn for the most manliness possible. Domonique, Alabaster.
Let's see how long you can maintain this.
How do you think this bit is going for you, Pablo?
I'd ask the ladies out there. I don't really care what you guys think.
Okay. Very good. First topic. Does it make sense that the Celtics are still betting favorites in the East over the Bucks, who have won 16 straight games?
It does make me laugh when we inevitably do the thing Domonique. And by the way, this is the version of Domonique Foxworth that now cares about the NBA. So I'm so glad that NBA Domonique is here.
I've always cared. I just have time now to invest in also knowing about the NBA. It's a very important factor.
Former NBPA executive Domonique Foxworth has checked back in just in time to notice that the Bucks are probably going to win the title again. It is funny, man. Like, it's like, all right, those guys, the one with Giannis, that team, that's won a zillion games in a row with Giannis playing 33 minutes a game, like not even at his Giannising. Like, he's not Giannising yet, and he's still Giannising everybody. And so, yeah, plus 200 the Bucks are right now.
Yeah, and the Celtics are the favorite. I guess I'm surprised because normally we do the thing where we give it the benefit of the doubt to the team that we've seen do it before. We saw the Celtics do something more recently, I guess, last year, but in the finals, they came up quite short. And they have a new coach, another first-year coach who's overachieving the expectations of any first-year coach. But I think it comes down to, and this is going to upset Alabaster greatly, like it comes down to the perimeter players that the Celtics have. It's like that is probably, I'm assuming, the only thing that we're like leaning on why they will be favorites, and the defense is better. But this is the big thing about basketball is we've talked about this before. The playoffs are actually very different.
Yes.
And we say that about football. We say that about other sports, when in actuality, football games are like slightly more intense, but like the foundation of the game is not that much difference. The pace slows down some. It's not that dramatic, but it slows down enough that it matters. And the intensity picks up at the level, and the in-game adjustments in the game plan and all that stuff is to a whole nother level. So it's hard for me to feel confident based on a 16-game winning streak or based on frankly, any in-season record at this point to say that any team is definitively better than the other one. But Giannis is the man. I feel safe betting on him because I'll never forget that he hyperextended his knee and then came back and couldn't miss a free throw or a shot and was unbeatable. Pretty much single-handedly took down the Suns.
Yeah, I mean, look, so the Bucks haven't lost when Giannis has played in a game since January 6th. I want to make a joke here about January 6th, but I feel like the point of the basketball is actually probably salient here. There is no populist revolution to overthrow this regime, I guess, is what I'm suggesting.
I like half-hearted joke, Pablo. I like this new character that you're testing out. You don't fully believe in your joke. And
I
you just
don't.
Say,
I don't. But what I will say about Giannis is that he is doing this again without being asked to play more than 33 minutes a game. And so playoff Giannis, what does this really mean, right? So when you're talking about the NBA postseason being different from the regular season, you're talking about benches shortening, you're talking about deliberate game plans to take the ball out of the hands of the opposing team's best player. Right. Nobody has really figured out how to do that with Giannis. Every postseason, we kind of marvel at it, like Stan Van Gundy saying, and by the way, hold for yet another would-be political reference. They try to build a wall.
Yeah, they did.
And they don't succeed. And Domonique, I just don't know how the Celtics stop Giannis. I guess that's my question if we're doing this a head-to-head thing.
The building the wall thing has succeeded in the past. It's a relatively recent phenomenon that it stopped succeeding. Like, I feel like that was the big criticism of Coach Budenholzer, is that he had no other changeup. And I'm not sure that he brought a changeup or Giannis just leveled up to some degree. but that was the technique. That hasn't worked in recent years, so I don't know what the answer is. I think it's going to be a good series. I wouldn't be surprised if they do match up eventually. I wouldn't be surprised if the Celtics won. I wouldn't be surprised if Giannis and them, Chris Middleton, I guess, deserves to have his name mentioned. Like, how many people on these teams like are at the level that they deserve to have their name mentioned? Because I really feel like that is the thing about the Celtics that makes me feel, if I want to be more confident in the Celtics, it is their depth. And I understand that the rotations tighten, but their depth provides them with a bit of flexibility that I would say that I don't think the Bucks have, even though Giannis is only playing 33 minutes a game.
Well, this is the key. Alabaster put down a card before about how Chris Middleton still has not played the second game of back-to-back since returning, I believe, or something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alabaster, on that. But he is still banged up. Chris Middleton is. Drew Holiday. Like, what we're counting on, and this is the best argument for, whole season, that whole Chris Middleton not playing in back-to-back is kind of a deal.
Congratulations.
Yeah, is that load management, is that injury. I believe that either way, they're gearing up for a postseason run in which they're going to be at a level of intensity that we just haven't seen yet. And yes, Chris Middleton, perimeter player, complement to Giannis, is going to be essential to beating a Celtics team that does have, like, last year, let's rewind that far back, best defense in the NBA after January 1st, right? So this is what they're going to be up against. They're familiar with each other. Alabaster, what are we missing here in our big picture assessments?
Well, what's interesting here is the Bucks actually have an even better defense than the Celtics this year. They have the best defense by defensive net rating. The Celtics are fourth. Ironically, the thing that makes this series a little bit spicier this year is the Celtics adding Malcolm Brogdon. They got exposed in the NBA Finals as not having a lead ball handler, and he is someone the Bucks let go and decided to sign Eric Bledsoe instead, which led to the whole string of the Drew Holiday trade and why these teams are here. But to me, that's the move that could move the needle for the Celtics. And if we don't believe in them, we're just believing that Giannis can beat the best roster in the league.
Yeah. Kind of think you can.
Yeah, I mean, again, the last big moment for Giannis was those finals when it felt like he beat a whole roster by himself. So saying that he can't do that, I think, would be foolish. But doing it against this team in particular is going to be really challenging.
I do think Malcolm Brogdon, I get, to Alabaster's credit, probably a name we should mention.
Yeah,
just because he's not going to wildly turn the ball over in the way that, they relied on Marcus Smart in the way that they lost.
It wasn't even Marcus Smart's fault as much as it felt like a lot of Jaylen Brown issue.
Oh,
and
also him. Yep.
White, just like it felt like there was no one they could trust, and Tatum was on and off in the finals. Just felt like there was no one. Anytime they got the ball, I felt uneasy, and I wasn't even a Celtics fan. It was just like, oh, what's going to happen? Is Jaylen Brown going to drive and get stripped again? It just wasn't fun.
Yeah, I remember Derek White's hairline. That's mostly my memory of that series. But what's next?
I just remember the guy you remember the guy, I think we had made a picture on the show about it, where there was a guy, I'm not going to pick on that man's hairline.
For the podcast audience.
Get it out of here. That's just rude.
It's not good. It's not good podcast audience.
I mean, the guy who was in the stands, who had a jersey on that said white, and his skin was the same color as his jersey. That was the picture I was talking about that I really enjoyed from last year's playoffs.
That's right.
It was magical.
Oh, that was
I think we named it White.
White.
White was
White.
the best.
White.
I forgot about White.
You forgot about White? Never forget about White.
They definitely don't forget about it the last time the Bucks lost the game with Giannis in the lineup. Not on that day.
I think, yes.
That's a good point.
I think that's a good job. Good job. Way to tie it all together, Pablo. You're back.
I was waiting the entire segment to make myself whole again. So thank you.
So let's move on. And we're talking about Kevin Durant. After his debut in Phoenix, maybe he's the bus driver, maybe he's not. Do you agree with Vegas that the Suns are the favorites in the West?
Domonique, this is your account. You're waxing on and waxing off.
Oh no, I was whipping the bus. That's what we're doing. We're whipping the bus right here. This is what Kevin Durant has done on every team that he's ever played on. Yeah, he is always the bus driver, and he was incredible in his debut. And it's only been a few weeks, I guess, since the last time I saw him play. And when I watched him last night, I was thoroughly, or I guess when you guys are watching this Wednesday night, I was still like surprised by how great he is. His points were not astronomical, but just the mid-range effectiveness is, yes. Bottom line, the West is not very strong. Yes, they are the favorites. Yes, they should be the favorites. They have concerns defensively. They'll have to figure that out. And I guess the Nuggets are the big contender over there. Golden State when they get healthy, and we got some Grizzle talk coming up later. Ja Morant and them.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Yes.
But I'm happy to put my money on Kevin Durant driving this bus all the way to the championship and probably losing, but still driving them to the championship.
Well, listen, 10
Devin
to 15,
Booker had like 37, right?
23 for KD, yes, 30 plus for Devin Booker. KD only played 26 minutes. By the way, just as a general observation, who plays better off of a crazy leg injury than Kevin Durant? Just like at some point you feel like he should stop doing this, and instead what he is, you know, when you like travel and you're like, I'm in Europe, this socket, like I need the thing to plug the thing in. Kevin Durant is the universal travel adapter. He will work in any system, any electrical grid, any outlet, whatever you need, he will plug in immediately and power your No one is better as a matter of basketball fit than that dude. He doesn't need the ball, doesn't need he is the anti-Luka, anti-James Harden. He is a superstar who will be the best supporting cast member you've ever seen.
Supporting? How dare you?
I'm just saying, sometimes, Domonique, the true trick to being a bus driver is to let someone else drive. And Kevin Durant is somebody who doesn't need to whip the bus. He doesn't need to.
That was the worst, sloppy Instagram.
Felt really good about it.
Post.
Felt really good about it.
Sometimes driving the bus is not driving the bus. Stop it. This is garbage. Kevin Durant is the best player on this team. He was playing, it seemed like half speed and still effective on offense and defense. So yeah, he's great. They're going to be great with him. We'll see what happens.
Make the finals.
They should. And I guess it's disrespectful to the Nuggets, who've been playing really well, and Michael Porter Jr., who's probably should be the best player on his team, but is somehow the third best. Just if you look at him as a skills that
prototype,
he offers, he would be the thing that I would look at in the West and concern me if it was about stopping Kevin Durant. But he can't, because nobody can. So if I had to bet some money, I think I'd go with the unknown that is the Suns with Durant. It's we have one game against a bad team.
By the way, a bottom 5 defense in the Hornets, but whatever.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, this is all on projection.
No, I believe in it.
It's a good projection to have, and it's also based on the relative weakness of the Western Conference. It does not. There's no standout team that just feels. Which I know Alabama's gonna get mad at me and say Jokic and Denver Nuggets, blah blah blah. Yeah, I mean they're good.
I want to ask you another hypothetical. If the Clippers are healthy and play the Suns in the playoffs, who would you think is better? That's a potential 4-5 matchup. And I'm talking about healthy Kawhi.
How many minutes is Russell Westbrook playing?
0 after halftime.
I'm not going to stand for this either.
That's
no Russell slander.
That's a big difference.
So that team is scary as hell. That's fair. The Paul George and Kawhi Leonard healthy are wings that could be a huge problem for Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. But offense is easier than defense. And I tend to think that Kevin Durant's going to figure out how to score enough points. I guess the tough thing about that is projecting what the Suns' defense is going to be. They have a rim protector in DeAndre Ayton, but they have a guy in Chris Paul who's been called a cone by Patrick Beverley, and Devin Booker, who's not a defensive specialist. Kevin Durant, who has lots of lower body injuries and is old. That's the concern, I guess. We'll see. I mean, they're not going to be completely healthy, though, so... You're talking about a conference finals where Kawhi is going to be playing in all the games up until then, and he's going to be at tip-top Kawhi shape in the conference finals to play against Kevin Durant? We'll see.
Also, is it still true, Alabaster, that the Warriors have like the best 5-man lineup in the NBA? Like that's still the case?
They don't even play.
Yeah, I mean that
Yeah.
is pretty much. I mean,
Was it like based on the first
Jokic's starting
25
lineup
games?
and since January has been
Okay,
absurd.
yeah.
But
I
like
really,
I don't know who's over the course of the season what has a higher net rating. But Domonique, why do you think that Durant's a better health bet for the postseason than Kawhi? They kind of had like since 2018, neither one of them plays more than 60 games. Like they're both dominant playoff performers offensively. To me, that one's actually sort of a wash. It's sort of interesting that we just inherently trust Durant to be there much more than Kawhi.
yeah, I don't wonder why. That's a fair point. I mean, I think it's also because Durant's injuries seem like acute and that they happen and then they're over. And Kawhi, I think, has been dealing with the same concern for what feels like the past 10 years. Like, it never really feels like he's ever gotten fully healthy. For a long stretch, we've seen Durant get healthy and play great for extended stretches, including in the playoffs when everyone else around him was hurt. We haven't seen that for Kawhi, which is maybe just a poor justification, but I think that's why we think of Durant's health as more guaranteed than we do Kawhi's.
I do believe that fundamentally, because I have the same instinct as Domonique, as flawed as our reasoning may be, it is because I think I know why Kevin Durant isn't playing in games.
Right.
Kawhi Leonard
Yeah.
feels like a giant, like, I can't see inside of his
Yeah.
box.
I mean,
I don't understand him. It's confusing to me. It's unpredictable. I feel less sure in him.
It feels like he's like he has an issue that's like a chronic issue that's not going to go away, and that it's only a matter of time. Like there's only so many plays, there are only so many games that he has on his body until he needs a lot of rest or he's a way diminished player. It does not feel like that for Kevin Durant. It feels like maybe he'll step on somebody's ankle and mess up his knee, or maybe he'll do something weird, but chances are he's going to be healthy.
As we move on, worth noting, Kawhi has been playing heavy minutes in like his last 10 games.
He has.
It's wild. So it's going to be fascinating to see if that continues into the playoffs. All right, last topic. What do you make of the Ja Morant situation?
So this story is a real story now because the Washington Post has now obtained previously unknown police reports and other documents and done interviews that all indicate that maybe the most exciting player in basketball, in Ja Morant, was involved in 2 incidents last summer where the police got called. One was a mall parking lot. The other one was a pickup basketball game at Ja Morant's house. The former incident, Domonique, was at a finish line. Apparently his mom was there, got in a dispute with an employee. His mom called Ja, and Ja showed up with a whole bunch of people, and allegedly threats were made. The pickup basketball game.
And mushed the security guard in the face, allegedly.
Alleged mushing is a key detail here.
Yes.
And then when you get to the basketball game, mushing of a different sort. We're talking about a 17-year-old player playing against Ja at Ja's house and them throwing the ball real hard at each other, leading to Ja then mushing the 17-year-old, I believe. I don't know if the verb actually should be stronger in this case, but the point is
the allegations is that he punched him, and they allege that he punched him in one of Ja's friends, punched this 17-year-old 13 to 14 times, I think is what it said in the Washington Post piece.
Yep. And then Ja Morant allegedly reemerged from his house with a gun visible in his waistband. So all of which is to say that I hate this story because now the most exciting young player in basketball, who is so likable otherwise, has this list of things that I do need answers for.
And you left off the other one that isn't him directly, but the accusations from the Pacers organization that some people in Ja's camp were pointing a laser, like a gun laser at them, and
inside
it's
of
all
the bus,
inside of the bus and threatening them in that way. So it's despicable.
The thing about, like, on some level, like, it's easy for me to tell someone else, like, hey, please don't, like, encourage your mom to fight finish line sneaker store employees. Please don't show up with a bunch of people. Please don't fight teenagers. Please don't threaten other teams. Simply because, I suppose, Domonique, I just don't know if they ever thought that this would not be reported on. Like, did you really think this was not going to be found out at some point? I'm actually shocked that it took this long, to their credit, I guess. But this feels like the thing you explicitly can't do when you're a certain level of famous.
Yeah, well, I mean, in response to this, it wasn't where I wanted to go necessarily, but in response to that, most things don't get found out. Like having been a part of several professional teams, most the stuff that happens does not get found out. It goes away or it doesn't rise to a level of this like this. And that basketball is maybe different because the stars are bigger, but that's just the case. Like I remember lots of things that happened in and around teams that I was on from college all the way through to the end of my career to pros that just nothing happened. Like we have security, head of security who is
Well,
relationships with the police. There's
this
like
is this
the
is this
stuff
is
the
this is
stuff
where
goes without being discussed.
but this is a follow-up though that's I think valid to, and there's a larger conversation about like what the Ja Morant on the behavior level, but just the mechanics of how a story like this gets suppressed. It feels like there's just a level of sloppiness
Yeah.
insofar as they are not using the resources available to
Right.
make stories like this go away. They're kind of leaving loose ends everywhere. And I guess
And,
just on the level of incompetence as well as malice, I'm kind of staggered by the trail here of just like,
and it's
what are you
also I
doing?
think the shocking thing also is that an NBA player of his stature would even be close to anything like this. And
Yes,
like NBA players who rise to this level are normally like spotted so much earlier and groomed, I guess, in some ways and prepared for this because the league is so dependent on their stars. This is not something that we see happen too often. But there's a few things about the way like this story's been around for a few days now, and there's a few things about the way that it's being talked about that like grab my attention.
mm,
And one of them is like how so many people are saying Ja didn't grow up like this. He went to school here in like two-parent house and that sort of stuff. Like, I think we're like exposing some like biases and prejudice that we have when we talk like that because I know people who grew up in two-parent houses and are from the suburbs who are about all the dumb
mm.
as AJ Brown would put it. I know people like that. So like the assumption that you have to be from a troubled background, and I understand that sometimes those people from those tougher situations feel forced into that life, and then if they make it to some success, then it's hard to cut that life off. But also like it's fair to believe that these are not stories about Ja's team or Ja's friends getting in the stuff and Ja just being close to it. He allegedly
Yes,
is the catalyst of all this. So when I hear people saying you got to shake these dudes, you got to shake these bad friends, it don't sound like it's bad friends. And when people start assuming Ja's a good kid, he went to good schools, like you can't be a good kid who went to bad schools. Like you
right.
can't be a good kid who had a single parent home, or like just because you had two parents that you're automatically a good kid. Like y'all don't know him. And I'm not saying that he's bad or any or he's a problem because I don't know him either, but it's just like the assumptions that are in that like analysis to me like is just it's not offensive, but it just jumps out at the things that we're
Oh, yeah.
assuming that it should be okay if he were different.
Right. The idea that he should have higher standards because he didn't have this
Right.
very stereotypical excuse
Mhm.
is sort of distracting us from the fact that he is the protagonist in each of these stories.
Right.
Like it's not just you got to cut out your entourage, so to speak.
And it's the
It is
yeah.
yo. Do you realize that this is extreme behavior for a person who's not a super famous, like highly visible face of a league? And now, what is being asked of the NBA and what I'm asking of them, and this is where I get to like the behind the scenes. Like, again, I'm interested, Dominic, to your point about suppression of leaks and stories earlier. Like, I just believe that in a different era of the NBA, and maybe this is unfair, but I'll pose it anyway. David Stern is not waiting for this story to come out before he's like intervening in that sort of his own in the shadows menacing way. I just don't know how it got out of control to this degree. How is no one, and I guess to their credit, maybe Adam Silver's trying it. Maybe the Grizzlies security people are trying it. Maybe Ja Morant is actually defying all of the people who are literally incentivized to make this not happen. And if that's the case, even crazier than I thought. But I'm just like, my mind is blown by so much of this on that level too.
Yeah, I mean, I think the I've been hearing a lot of the like the David Stern wouldn't do this and Adam Silver is a bad commissioner and blah blah blah. I think a lot of it has to do with the circumstances and the environment that Adam Silver entered. He did not have the ability to be David Stern to these players. Like he came into a league that LeBron already owned. Like it's very
Yes,
different. So like
that's right.
assuming that Adam Silver can like do whatever backroom bullying that David Stern uh we all assume would have done, like it's weird to me, and that's connected to the way that we talk about load management, the way that we talk about CBA negotiations, and also the way that some people are talking about Adam Silver's influence over Ja Morant. This league is different than the league was then, and Adam Silver's uh, his reputation is different than David Stern's was at that time. So maybe Adam Silver can grow into this authoritarian that you all seem to want him to be, but he
Well,
can't be it now, and
point
he's not it.
taken. Point taken. But I do believe that something that I believe that this is for reasons that are beyond Ja Morant. This feels like an enormous problem for this sport.
It's not though. I think this
Okay,
this
explain
is
why.
because this is not the sport. Ja Morant is the aberration. Name somebody else in basketball, a young star in basketball that has this stuff around them. It's not.
But
So
this,
like
but that's kind of my point. Is that what it is grist for a mill of stereotypes. And I'm like, this is a PR problem. I'm not saying it should be a PR problem. I'm saying that this is obviously an extreme case that should be treated as an extreme case because we don't have the other examples to make it a trend. I fully agree.
It's not a PR problem. It's not.
I disagree.
It's
I
not.
think
Not
if
a
I'm Adam
long-term
Silver,
PR
I am
problem.
losing sleep over the
Oh,
fact
yeah,
that one
yeah.
of my
If
most
I'm
famous young players, a face of the league, is now in some real.
Yeah, if I'm Adam Silver, I'm concerned about it, and you should. I'm not saying you shouldn't have to nip it in the bud, but I think you're overselling it by suggesting that this is some big problem that the league has to worry about. This is one of several talented young stars, not even the best of them. They're going to be all right. Who has been accused of some things that will probably not land him in jail. It's not a big deal
Fair.
for them overall.
Fair on the jail.
But
Yep.
but this is like also like a lot of the conversation about somebody needs to talk to him, his parents need to get through to him, or Adam Silver or anybody, and it's not just you, just like in general, like this is assuming, you know, when the president gets a problem, it's an impossible problem because if it was a problem that you could have solved before, somebody lower would have like figured out how to solve it. That's how I feel about this Ja Morant thing. If it was as simple as a mentor, we'd have been solved that. These things are much more complicated than that. And the idea that you think that you can tell a young person what to do and they're going to do it suggests to me that you're delusional. Anybody who's been around a young person or has been a young person knows I was a young person. I know what it feels like to have some older dude who obviously knows more than me tell me that what I'm doing is stupid, and I still need to go burn my hand on the stove at least once.
So the psychology of young people and the difficulty of getting through to them, especially somebody who, for whatever reason, feels like he can get away with some stuff or isn't worried about this in the way that he should be incentivized to. Totally fair. But the point about the president is a valid one. That's a good analogy. I like it. The question, though, redounds to, are you a good president? Right? Like, it is at your desk now, man. Like, what are you going to do? And so jury's out. I'm not saying that Adam Silver has failed the test already, but there are now a list of things that raise questions about when the president got that phone call. And is he the guy you want to, again, borrow yet another tortured political reference? Is Adam Silver the guy you want answering the phone at 3 a.m.? Right?
I feel like I'm in like some horrible game because I remember when everybody was all high on Adam Silver and I was the one who was like, chill out, guys. Like, there's going to come a time when you guys realize that he is not the world's greatest commissioner.
Yes. You represented the union. You negotiated with the league directly. You know this intimately.
It was like no disrespect to Adam Silver, but it was like you guys are building him up in a way that's not true, which is unfair to him and setting you up to be upset. And now I feel like I'm on the other side where it's just like everyone's like, oh, Adam should have fixed it. Adam should have done this. Adam's too soft on the players. That's why they be load managing and forcing trades because he wants to be their friend. And Adam can't get Ja Morant in line. chill out. Adam's gonna be all right. The league is gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be okay,
Stunning
guys.
reversal.
Adam is. I mean, the point is, I think he's somewhere in here, and y'all either want to think he's old. He's like
I
if
know
Jesus
this is
put on a
okay,
tie,
fair.
and then you're like, oh my gosh, this commissioner is so weak. It's like you just grabbed a little boy out of gym class and gave him a commissioner's job. Like it's absurd.
What I believe though, and you said it in your answer and I'm happy to play the role of you people because I think this is a fascinating conversation, honestly, is simply that Adam Silver's criticism and power comes from his alliances with his stars, right? It has always been the substitute for actual progressivism. Adam Silver is not a radical leftist. He is a guy who has allies with young black men who are actually important to his business. That is why he has that feeling.
Thank you, Pablo.
With that, we're comparing him against Roger Goodell, Rob Manfred, Adam Silver. By this standard, is Che Guevara, okay? But in reality,
Roger Goodell would do the same thing if he was the commissioner of the NBA.
Okay,
so would Rob Manfred.
Okay, so fair. I love that digression because it speaks to a natural question of what is he incentivized to do. And so the question here is simply, is that power, is that criticism, your alliances with your players has been the reason why you are considered a success? How does this factor into a story that is both extreme on one hand and atypical, and also very much about how you deal with players one-on-one? And Domonique, I'm just saying, valid question. Not saying I know the answer. Valid question I'd like reporting into.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you're not asking me for an answer. I appreciate that because it's a question I can't answer. But what you're walking up to is a general, like, core philosophy of my life. When I'm talking to anyone and I'm thinking about just about anything, particularly when you're making decisions, you have to always remember that nothing is all good and nothing is all bad. Everything that feels good right now, there will be a price for it later. And everything that feels bad right now, at some point, you'll realize that it benefits you in some way. Like, it's just about trade-offs and decision making. So the strategy that Adam Silver has taken so far that people say is just coddling to players or whatever, it was the smartest strategy to take at the time. Maybe he will shift it at some point, but we noticed and we all recognized that a long time ago, the NBA was driven by stars. And when you come into a league that is driven by stars with already established stars, you have to respect them in a way that some of y'all don't. And you expect that Adam was supposed to roll up in here and tell LeBron to sit down and shut up. Good damn luck.
This is where, Alabaster, I point out that LeBron has told Domonique to sit down, and we've all told you to sit down, so you may stand.
That's right. Well,
we got way off of the Ja Morant conversation. Sorry about that.
No. I actually think we landed a place to bring it back to it because sure, the league will be fine, but it's still not good for the league when one of their most visible young stars is involved in something like this with Ja Morant. And I'm actually wondering if the league is about stars, just how good of hands it's going to be in a few years when LeBron, Curry, and Durant retire, because those guys have been stalwarts of like what we want NBA stars to be. And yeah, sure, the four best players in the world will be Euros in Luka, Jokic, Embiid, and Giannis. But they're going to be actually getting up there in age too. And I don't know how great hands, how much star power there's going to be for like American basketball fans in a couple of years. It's not as great and rosy as it has been for the past since 2003.
So this is a conversation that you and I had a long time before the start of NBA season, Alabaster. We discussed that they're really the best player. There's normally one protagonist in the NBA season. And we've seen it go from Jordan to Shaq to Kobe to LeBron. And we don't know who that next person is going to be. But what we do know is it's not going to be someone American. Like that's unless it's Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum is the last hope to be like the best American player. And so, yeah, that's going to create a different challenge and also different benefits for the NBA going forward. But I don't think that any of this is that whether Ja Morant getting these stories written about him and these accusations that are embarrassing but not going to land him in jail. I don't think that this is a long-term problem for the NBA unless this is like an epidemic and we're going to start finding out a bunch of other players. Like I think Ja Morant will probably see the writing on the wall and address this behavior and not have any other issues. And if he doesn't, there's so like this. He is not the second coming. Like no one's sitting around thinking that Ja Morant is about to be the protagonist for the NBA going forward. He's not going to be LeBron James.
Well, he is. Man,
he has a chance to, but I'm saying if he doesn't, the league is not going to be like, oh my gosh, we're in a desert. We can't find a star.
He is not the son of the solar system you love so much. That's fair.
Yeah.
I agree. Also, yeah, like let's be real about American attention. Realistically, just don't do anything like this again.
Yeah.
Don't wind up in prison, and we will move on to the next thing. Like we have the energy now.
We won't. Oh, you mean we'll move on to the next thing as far as meat is concerned? I thought you were talking about for Ja. Like all you got to do is stay out of trouble, and then whether it's true or not, next season we're gonna write a redemption story about how you cleaned everything up, and we're all gonna celebrate you, and we're gonna say, and this would have been a path that you went through that made you more interesting and made you into a better player. All you got to do is not do no more, or at least not get caught doing no more dumb. It's really simple.
We again, like collectively, this show could be great at cynical defense attorney, how to spin the media, what to do, what show to appear on, who to cry with. Like it's solvable, man. Just don't do this again.
Yeah,
please.
You can come out at the end of the season and talk about how you were feeling insecure and vulnerable, and it pushed you to do some dumb things, and now you've gotten right, and you've dedicated your foundation to teaching boys about ways to express their masculinity that don't involve violence. There you go, Ja. I'll take the check now.
I got a way to express your masculinity without getting into trouble.
Well done.
Just,
well done. Full circle.
What? What do you mean?
Nothing.